Before we get to today's episode, I wanted to take a moment to highlight an important and fun organization, particularly for us Bostonians. The Boston Alliance for LGBTQ Youth, more fondly known as BAGLY, is hosting its annual Heels for Hope Gala on May 29th in Boston and would love your partnership. BAGLY is a youth-run, adult-supported organization that offers services and care at no cost to LGBTQ youth across the greater Boston area. From health screenings to therapy to basic toiletries, BAGLY is here for our LGBTQ youth when in need. You can support BAGLY by donating or, better yet, attending their annual Heels for Hope fundraiser, an elegant and unapologetic night of drag and fundraising in downtown Boston on May 29th. Elegant and unapologetic is what I aspire to be, so this event speaks to my heart, and I hope it speaks to yours on behalf of all the kids out there that might feel a little different or feel like who they really are isn't who they're supposed to be, and who may not have the family or community around them to prove that's not true. They deserve to shine in life, and BAGLY helps make that possible. Visit bagly.org/heels for more. That's bagly.org/heels, HEELS. And now, on with the show. I'm Sarah Brown, and this is The Mothers, real conversations with leaders, creators, and thinkers about who we are, what we want, and how we build meaningful lives alongside motherhood. Hello, friends. Welcome to the latest episode of The Mothers. I think/hope everyone survived Mother's Day. Maybe you got a heartfelt card, a moment alone with coffee. Maybe you were on the sidelines of a sporting event for most of Sunday, and maybe that's exactly where you wanted to be. Whatever it was or wasn't, you probably deserve more. But there's always next year. In the meantime, today's guest is a special one because I get to interview my friend and former Google twin, Sara Holcomb. Sara, no H. She's a longtime Google rock star turned retail media and advertising executive, currently SVP and head of strategy at Criteo, and previously an executive leader at Dentsu, where she led global retail partnerships. Sara spent more than 15 years at Google, growing up professionally inside one of the most influential companies of our generation, helping shape the modern advertising and media ecosystem as the company itself transformed from startup-era rocket ship into global institution. That sounds really impressive. And this conversation became about so much more than career ambition or motherhood alone. It's about what happens when the institution that shaped you no longer fully fits you. It's about the invisible labor mothers carry, especially when caregiving becomes medically complex. And it's about what happens when a deeply competent, high-performing person suddenly collides with systems that are fragmented, inaccessible, and not built to support families in crisis. When Sara's younger son, August, began experiencing balance issues as a toddler, what followed was months of uncertainty, specialist appointments, and eventually a diagnosis of congenital CMV, or CCMV, the leading infectious cause of childhood hearing loss, and something most parents have never even heard of, even though it's more common than Down syndrome and spina bifida, which we hear a lot about. We talk about the emotional reality of raising a child with hearing loss, the hypervigilance that comes with constantly scanning environments for accessibility, the grief and guilt and fear that can accompany a diagnosis like this, and also the extraordinary joy, resilience, and perspective that can emerge alongside it. We also talk about ambition, institutional identity, motherhood, caregiving, and what it means to redefine success after your life changes in ways you never anticipated. You will leave with a clearer understanding of how high-achieving women like you adapt when life stops being optimizable, how to recognize when a role, company, or identity no longer fits, how to think about ambition differently across seasons of life, and how resilience often looks less like having it all together and more like learning to keep moving while carrying things you never expected to carry. And before we begin, if you live in Massachusetts, Sara needs your help. A bill is currently up for vote that would require Massachusetts to screen newborns for congenital CMV at birth. Early detection can save a child's hearing, improve outcomes, and help families access critical intervention and support sooner. In the episode description, you'll find a voter voice link that pre-populates and sends an email directly to your local representative. It takes about 10 seconds, one click, potentially life-changing impact for another child and another family. Save a child's hearing, support another mother. Now, here's my conversation with Sara Holcomb. How's your New York life? Did you get crazy? Did you go to a spa?
I went to the spa in New Jersey. It was fabulous. Everybody should go.
Jersey spa.
It looks back on Manhattan, and it has like an infinity edge, and then it goes into the Hudson River, which is kind of cool.
Wow.
I know.
It's better than any view I've ever had from a spa.
It was lovely. Have you ever done the one on Governor's
Island? No, we talked about this, and I think you're going to invite me to go. That was what
and we have to go to Miracle.
Takeaway.
Have you ever gone to Miracle?
Nope.
Oh, we should do that one first.
I don't know how to treat myself.
I know how to treat you, so let's go.
Thank you. What's your go-to off the menu spa? Are you a massage girl?
Oh,
facial girl?
You're a massage girl.
Yeah.
Although I like the idea of a facial, but I'm not as like, sometimes it makes me like itchy, I think, because I don't like to just sit there and wait, like when you sit there and you wait. What about you?
Wait for the facial?
Yeah. Like they have a mask, and they leave you there.
Oh yeah. And and you're like, I'm paying for this. Can I not be left alone with like a sheet of wet plastic on my face?
Top of my eyes.
No, I agree. The thing I hate about a massage most is like when I know it's over, I'm like, oh, they're flipping me over now. Like,
it's the worst. And you can feel it coming. And then
yes.
Like,
yes.
No.
What's the longest massage you've ever had?
She was like, 90 minutes.
I think I want to say I did a 2-hour once, but it was
it
was a fake 2 hours. I feel like there was like 15 minutes of like onboarding and like,
did they let you,
are you pregnant? Like all things. Here's some tea.
Areas. Do they know anything?
Yes.
Are you stressed?
Exactly. No, never stressed. I'm unlike everyone else. I defy stress.
Along your entire left side. Do you know that? No, I was like, yeah. that's
your left side. I get it on my right.
I have an old volleyball injury, I think. And I think it just like my muscles just, they don't like that.
What an athlete.
I like your space, by the way.
For life.
I really like
thank you so much.
Screen.
That's so nice. The screen, we're trying to make do with what we have.
It's very cute though. The winter. Is it downstairs still?
Yep. It's in the basement. What's crazy about this basement is finally it's warm out in the world. But now down here, it's like still cold. So like earlier today, I had the space heater on because I was like, it's really chilly. Like it's great. I mean, I guess
you're in the ground.
Yeah,
in the ground, it's still cold.
I am in the ground under the ground in a cave. Okay, this is funny because I know you so well.
I know, I'm really excited for it.
You know what's funny too is I was like, but I feel like I know Sarah, so I feel like I'm like, I shouldn't fuck up some answer. Like, what if there's stuff that I really actually don't know? What if it turns out that I don't know Sarah at all?
Ooh, that could be like is that the best possible outcome? I'm not sure.
Let's get the real dirt on Sarah. You probably know this, but I interviewed my mom on this podcast.
No, I didn't know that.
That was helpful. I feel like it allowed me to ask questions. And after the episode, I said this. I was like, anyone who has any way to like have some sort of neutral platform in which to have a conversation with someone important in their life, it's like a weird place where you can talk about the things that you wouldn't talk about in like normal relationship land.
Yes.
So anyways, we're just gonna get to know each other. We're gonna become best friends.
I love this. Just think of me as your mom.
Yes. And also for anyone that is looking at us, we are not twins, but we just happen to have the same name spelled properly with no H and are blonde. And we were at Google together for forever. We were often confused for each other because our headshots also, I think we both had black shirts on, of course. Yeah. So now I make fun of my, well, you know this, Logan, our oldest. He's the majority of his friends are also named Logan. And I'm always like very quick to make fun of him about that. And then I'm like, wait a second. Like just before this, I was emailing another Sarah, longtime Sarah from Google. And I was like, wow, I really am surrounded by Sarahs. Maybe this is genetic.
Right at home, really.
Exactly. I can't really branch out. If your name is too different, I just don't know if it's going to work. Okay. Well, dear Sara Holcomb, welcome to the Mothers. I'm so excited that you're here. I'm excited to like really, get to know you, peel back the layers of this onion that I've been waiting to peel.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I feel like in a way that we've talked about it in different moments because we were on this path. We both ended up leaving Google basically around a very similar time. Wow, my camera just moved. It's not supposed to do that. So I feel like we have a lot to discuss about what it's like to grow up in a massive organization that's growing up at the same time and trying to figure out, is it me or is it them? Is it okay to move on? What does it look like to like be a like fawn in the forest outside of big Google and trying to like figure out what the world is like out there? So I feel like there's that, and obviously all of your family life that I want to talk about too. But we one of my favorite questions is we like to go back to the very beginning because I feel like we all are kind of on some level either recovering from or trying to come back to who we were when we were born. So I love hearing about the beginning of like little Sarah, this maybe to some people's surprise, the Southern Belle who wound up east, made her way to New England, probably the biggest mistake of her life. No. But yeah, tell me about your Atlanta roots. What was it like growing up in the South?
Ooh. Well, it was the only thing I knew, and I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved growing up in Atlanta. My family was from Memphis, and I feel like we learned Atlanta together. And actually, in a funny way, Atlanta sort of grew up with me too. When we first moved to Atlanta, it was not the big city it is today. We were like what was considered way out in the suburbs on 8 acres of land. It used to be a small horse farm.
Wow.
And by the time, I went to college, we were like the inner suburbs. The suburbs had spread so far beyond us. So
yeah,
kind of growing up with the city of Atlanta, actually. But it was awesome. I grew up kind of in the city, but on 8 acres of land. So we had this kind of like mix of lifestyle. Me and my brother had a go-kart that we, made go-kart trails all around and just lived
Cool.
outside. It was awesome.
You had a go-kart. My son is so jealous already.
Don't tell Logan or any of his Logan friends.
And for folks listening, so your family makeup is what?
My parents, and then I have a younger brother. And that is how we grew up in Atlanta.
So you're the eldest daughter, which continues to be a theme for me. Almost everyone we talk to is an eldest daughter. And if they aren't, I'm like, you've overachieved. Or they seem very like well-adjusted. They're like, I don't need to ask these questions about why I do what I do. I just do it. And you went to school. You also went to school in Georgia, in Atlanta. Is Georgia in Atlanta?
I grew up in a college football family. So we would go to Knoxville, Tennessee, almost, every home game in the fall. And I was determined to be a part of, the football college town. But of course I couldn't go to Tennessee where my parents went. So I went to Georgia. At the time there was something called the Hope Scholarship. Well, the Hope Scholarship still exists, but it was paid for by the lottery. So if you were in state and had a certain GPA, they would pay for your college schooling. So I decided to go to the University of Georgia.
Wow.
Go Dogs.
Yeah.
And it was awesome.
Did you play volleyball there or no?
No, I did not play at Georgia, but I played all of high school, did the Junior Olympic stuff, went to nationals.
Cool.
We won state 3 times in my 4 years.
Wow.
It was a huge part of life. But when I went to college, I decided I kind of wanted to explore more of life. And being 5'4", I didn't think I had much of
I was going to say, you're not tall, knowing you in real life.
I didn't think I had a long professional volleyball journey ahead of me.
But are there any positions where you're like, it's fine to be smaller, like in the back? I don't know. Tell me about volleyball.
Yeah, you can in the back. That was not what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to be in charge, which that maybe is like a theme in my life. I don't know.
That is, I'm sure, a theme. Amazing.
Yeah.
And then tell me, one of my favorite elements of your resume is that at some point you worked for Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. Well,
tell me what it was like. It is good. What do they do differently?
I'm a hometown girl. Like in Atlanta, it was like if you have to work at Coca-Cola, the Home Depot, Chick-fil-A, or like Delta. Those are like,
Delta.
You've made it if you get to work for one of those.
You could have been a flight attendant. I could sort of see you doing that, actually. It would have been really fun. First class only, though.
Only. I've actually never flown first class. I'm going to be honest with you.
I obviously have never done it either.
Mm-hmm.
I'm opposed to first class living, and then my husband really enjoys nice things. And then the very first time I did it, I was like, fuck this. I can't be in this front. This is so awful. Like, let's go back and be with the people. This is so uncomfortable. The kind of thing where I'm like, this is really nice and luxurious, but I can't enjoy it because I feel so like the whole thing is so unfair. And then the second time I was like, this is kind of nice.
And now you've never looked back. Tell the truth.
Now I know, but I'm still the premium economy is my natural place.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Anyway,
like
so Chick-fil-A, and
Chick-fil-A
then
was awesome.
yeah,
A very strong culture and a real family business. I feel like I learned a lot from like they're very values driven, and the kind of talent they attract is like, they're super kind and, collaborative. It was a really good experience, especially coming right out of
yeah,
college. I felt like very lucky to work there. It was like a very strong culture. And I feel like I learned a lot from them.
yeah. Did you know what you were trying to do at that point? Like, what were you looking for in a job?
Yeah, no, I had no idea. I had
Yeah.
gone to so I was pre-pharmacy for most of college. I loved
Oh,
science, and I thought pre-pharmacy would be a great way to enter the workforce.
yeah.
At the time, which is kind of funny, I was thinking about this. I was like, well, if I had kids, I think you could be like a part-time pharmacist. It could be cool. I could work at
Mm.
Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. My mom worked at St. Jude in Memphis. And so I had always
Oh,
heard
wow.
these stories about her work with these kids, and it's really hard work and a really hard it's hard to watch kids be sick and get better, but in
Yeah.
some cases that might not be the case. So I always like thought about maybe Children's Healthcare of Atlanta is the place for me, and being a pharmacist felt like a good way to do that.
Yeah.
And then my senior year, I was like, I just don't think this is actually what I want to do. So I
Yeah.
transferred to the business school and was in marketing, and that's what I graduated with. And so I thought I should work at corporate Chick-fil-A, because it was like they had the cow calendars, and they had like such great branding, and I thought I could learn a lot from them. And that's how I ended up
Yeah.
there. Not
Wow.
necessarily knowing what I was doing, but
Yeah.
yeah,
And then how did we get from Chick-fil-A was this in Atlanta? Is that where it was, I guess?
it was in Atlanta. Yep.
How did you do that? And then how did we get to Google in Cambridge, Massachusetts?
I know. So a friend of mine got a
Mm.
job at Google. Um,
I've heard of
I,
it.
I had spoken to her a few times. This is not a close friend. And she came back.
An
She
ex-friend.
came back to Athens, and she was at a happy hour I was at, and I started talking to her, and she loved her job at Google. And I said, I actually don't know what I want to do when
Yeah.
I graduate. And I was going through the Teach for America interview process at the
Oh,
time.
nice. Yeah.
I wasn't convinced that's actually what I wanted to do. I
Mm-hmm.
was kind of just like feeling out what we were doing. And she said, let me refer you to Google. Why not? Like, if
Yeah.
you're willing to leave Atlanta, give it a try. And I felt like I wanted to get out of the South. I wanted to try something different. I felt like my whole life had been there. Um, and I just felt like I kind of wanted to see what else was out there. So I gave her my resume, and then I got the Teach for America job. I was
Oh,
assigned to move
wow.
to New York City and teach math. Um, and then I decided to go through the Google interview process, and I was one of the last hires in 2008 before there was a hiring freeze because of the
Wow.
economy. But they would only hire me in Cambridge, which is surprising now, knowing Google. They had so many people on the West Coast. And I decided to do it. I
Yeah.
knew one person in Boston, and I mean, both of my grandmothers said, don't marry a Yankee, especially if he has an accent. So I need that proud. He does not have an
Yes.
accent.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Wait. So did you say no to Teach for America and then went through the Google process, or were they like waiting for you?
Yeah, no, I think I had like the side by side offers and
Yeah.
decided, I think like I'll learn more at Google. But I did not know what I was getting myself into. I don't
Yeah.
think I understood like we were standing at the beginning of such a revolution at Google.
Yeah.
Uh, and I feel forever grateful, honestly, that I got the job. I think it changed my life.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember getting the job offer at Google also and feeling, I don't know, it's not a lottery ticket, but I was so happy. It just felt
Yeah.
like what a great win kind of thing
Yeah.
that felt like full of possibility. Yeah. And it was in so many ways.
Oh my gosh.
Um, where did you land first when you came? Were you living in Cambridge? Where'd you move to?
I moved to Central Square in Cambridge.
Oh.
I moved into my friend, who now is one of my really good friends. I moved into her apartment, who she referred me.
Yeah.
And at that time they were hiring in groups, like cohorts. So we started with 14 other people. And I used to say, this is college round two for me. Like, we were our own community, because most of us had moved to Boston for this job. So we would,
Mm-hmm.
and at that time, Google would cover all of our meals. So we would eat like breakfast, lunch, and dinner together. And then
Mm-hmm.
often we were going to like events or, just like fun things like Google sponsored, or just things we wanted to do together. So it was a really like amazing time socially, getting to know
Yeah.
Boston.
Yeah. Do you remember? So to spoil, what is it called? Not bury the lead. So you're ultimately there for a little over 15 years, which is amazing. Can you remember back to day one, your
Mm,
first day at Google?
yeah. Well, my badge photo was still my first day when I left. So I had the same badge
Yeah.
photo. It didn't quite look the same after 15 years. Yeah, I mean, I remember the first day. It was
Yeah.
like I was so intimidated. I didn't, coming from a big state school in the South, I really wasn't familiar with like all the liberal arts places that are up in the Northeast. And a lot of my colleagues were from those schools. And so
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure like what I should already know, or like what it was like kind of embarrassing to ask, like, oh, what is Middlebury? I remember asking that question, and like the
Oh.
look was like, oh, you should know this.
Oh, Sarah, that makes me sad.
Yeah, so
Yeah. We're so
it was
obnoxious up here.
I learned so much. I learned so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Wow.
like in the South, everyone shares like where they go to school, and then usually like go dogs or like, their team. But college football is not quite exactly the same in the Northeast.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking about what you said pre Chick-fil-A, and also kind of like as someone who was, and I say this as someone who's similar, that not entirely sure what it is that I want to do. And I think a lot of people wound up at Google, were lucky enough to wind up at Google in a similar time of life where they're like, I'm not sure what I want to do, but I kind of, this can't be a bad thing, probably.
Yeah.
Do you know, along your Google life, what were there did you eventually start to figure out what you wanted to do, or no?
I I feel like I figured out threads of what I wanted to do, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't quite like find my calling, I think, while I was there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of it's related to kind of how we started this conversation around like your identity's tied to this like growing organization and this growing company, or almost like movement, it felt like. And so
Yeah.
you're just like, you're like you've drank the Kool-Aid and you're supporting it and you're all in, and you're not thinking like, what do I want to do? You're just saying like, oh, this is the opportunity in front of me and I'm going to do a great job at it.
Yes.
And it's funny looking back, because along the way, I remember people would leave and they would say, this is what I've always wanted to do, and I'm going to go do it. And they would leave and go to medical school, or like
Mm.
leave and go to a startup, or that folks left and learned how to code, or, people did all kinds of things. And
Mm-hmm.
I used to feel like sorry for these people when I would get their goodbye email. And
Mm-hmm.
I would think like, I can't believe you're going to leave this behind. Like,
Yeah.
this great thing. And I was totally bought in. But I think it also had to do with like I was away from home. I think like everything was about Google for me at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And it had become like my full identity. So I think I wasn't quite thinking about like where I was heading or what I really wanted to do.
Yeah. It's also hard looking back on it too, where it's like, Google is this rocket ship. It had never existed before. It's like creating a market and creating an industry and creating jobs that like there's no reference point. Like it's not like being a pharmacist where we're like, oh, I understand what that is. So it's hard to know what you want to be if that doesn't really exist. And I think short of
Yeah.
that, you're like, well, I'm just gonna be great at being at Google. Because you
Yeah.
were an exceptional, beloved, won many accolades for basically being like the favorite Google person.
Oh, please. Yeah, it was an amazing place to work. And I think like
Yeah.
towards the end of my time there, I started to realize like I really am drawn to work that's like kind of the tip of the spear. It's kind of like our next generation of thinking. I'm not as much of like a maintenance thinker. I don't like to like stand up the process and then just run the process over and over again. I really love like designing our entry point into something. And I'm starting to see glimmers of like, I think I need to find areas where this can be, this is my best day at work. So have more of these best days where like I'm looking at what's like our next, what's our next growing area where we want to set up, a proposition for, or we want to take out the clients or things like that. So I think
Yeah.
towards the end, I started to find or gravitate towards areas where I could see like a longer career, or like a place I could really invest. But I'm not sure I ever totally found my place at Google.
Yeah. And you were in the agency world from the beginning. Is that right? For folks that are outsiders of Google, can you explain
Yes.
a little bit about your remit?
So when I first joined Google, I was answering the phone lines. So 1-866 to Google. Thanks for calling AdWords. This is Sarah. And I
Yeah.
I learned like the guts of our ad system. And it was 2008. And so they weren't hiring to replace us. This should have been part of our training for like a month or two. But I ended up on the phones for like 9 months. And that was a learning and like I think resilience and persistence and just like seeing it through, even though it was not quite what I thought it was going to be. And it was not always a lot of fun.
Hmm.
Then I was moved into the agency org. And so I stayed there for almost my entire time at Google.
Okay.
Obviously, those jobs, they change so often. So I feel like I worked in like all areas of this business, in partnership design and then reselling technology and buying like different ad units when we brought YouTube to market. I mean,
Hmm.
it changed from being like, just go sell some search ads to, let's think about like the full mix of media that we can offer. And um, it was really exciting. I think I didn't realize until I left, like how many different iterations of our industry had seen.
Hmm.
And how that applies. I mean, I see it every day now. Like I see, I work a lot in retail media now and I see it changing so quickly. And some of the models are very similar to how programmatic advertising started, which we kind of saw the beginning of. And it's interesting now to be on the side of your career where you're seeing these patterns emerge in the markets and you can remember like, how did we stand this up the first time and what was successful or what wasn't and things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. You mentioned Google growing and seeing these different iterations of the industry. I'm thinking along the way, were you aware of, did you notice Google was growing up? Or what were there like signals
Yeah.
to you that this place is
Oh, yeah.
changing?
Yeah. I think so. That's an interesting question. Um, I think like I think I missed a lot of those
Hmm.
moments, and then I feel like it hit me at once. Like I was
Mm.
like I looked up and I was working at a different place.
Mm.
I think there were other people who saw it like gradually, but I think for me, I kind of had blinders on. And I think working in Cambridge was helpful to keep the blinders on
Hmm.
because we had such a smaller presence in office than if you're working in Mountain View or, one of our larger offices.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not sure the exact moment. I'd
Yeah.
love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah. No, I think my moments are like snarky ones where it's like, oh, we started hiring all these like MBA slash McKinsey people to come in and like tell us how to fix it. And I was like, ooh, that's a different moment. But, and that's like, but also my day to day was in many ways enjoyable still. But I think it was and I think there were, for me, I think everyone, I feel like we could have like dozens of Googlers lined up and they probably have different threads of what to them, like what made it
That's
special in the
so
beginning and then what kind of changed away from their preference over time. And I think for me, what I didn't realize was this, the level of creativity and entrepreneurialism that was kind of the leading way to approach the work when I started, which was 4 years ish after you started, towards the end where it was just so large. It had to be, um, everything had to be branded and consistent and the same. Everything was a template. We were basically, I mean, you're a company that large, the cog in the wheel kind of thing starts to feel real. And I feel like Google, especially being in Cambridge, I could sort of like ignore it for a while, that I wasn't like part of the big HQ-ness.
yeah.
But when it started to become less creative to me and less human, whatever version of that anyone wants to take. Um, and also, I think realistically, it's one of many things I think about Google is like Google like won capitalism. Like we played the game and we won, and then it's like,
Mhm.
well, what do you do next? And I think that's
Yeah.
so we made it, and then it's like, how do you maintain? And then competition comes in, and so you can't be everything that you were before when there wasn't the same level of competition, or we weren't like fighting, or there wasn't the same level of scrutiny. It's like that's where my heart will always be. I will admit that I'm probably biased and I haven't sat inside Meta, to say these things, but I really, what I loved, the heart of Google always felt like it was really trying to do the right thing, even when it was hard. And I just
Yeah.
think that became less possible. I mean, we look at the tech industry now in general. And no one's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Like you
Well,
can't.
yeah. Yeah. There's
Yeah.
trade-offs all over the place. I do
Yes.
remember very vividly in Cambridge, I was employee basically 100 in the Cambridge office.
Yeah.
And I remember someone coming up to me and saying, "Oh, are you new?" And I had been there for like 14 years. And I was like, "Oh no, I've been here for a while." But I realized I was like so old that I was now new to everyone. So I
Yeah.
remember that
Yeah.
being this moment for me, like we're not small enough anymore to like know everybody or to like even be familiar with everybody that's been
Yeah.
here for a long time.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
felt,
That
yeah,
does make me think too about you exist in kind of Google years. Like your age out in the world doesn't matter. It's like, but how long have you been have you been at Google? That
yeah,
basically dictates your seniority within the company.
yes, well, for a long
Um,
time. And then I
yes.
remember near the end of my time there, it was almost like I would try to hide how long I had been there because I think it felt like the experience outside of Google became more valued at that time. And
Yeah.
so I almost wanted people to not know how long I had been there because at that time, I mean, it's always a pendulum on like what is valued, like you mentioned, is it an MBA or is it
Hmm.
consulting background or is it that you're just, fresh out of college and can be coachable?
Yeah.
But at that time, I felt like being at Google for a long time was actually not something that was highly valued.
Yeah. Did you ever think that you would be there for so long? Or did you think about it?
Oh no. When I
Yeah.
joined Google, I thought I'd stay for a year. I
Mm.
thought I'd love to not live in Atlanta. This is kind of like a ticket to like go try something new. And I knew they were hiring us in cohorts, so I figured I'd make some friends in a
Yeah.
new city. I thought I'd stay for a year, and I met my husband in Boston,
Hmm.
and he's not from Boston, and so he wanted to stick around. He's in design, and there's great design in Boston, and so,
Hmm.
um, I think I'm not sure what would have happened if I hadn't met him. There's a chance I would have stayed anyways, but it's funny. I think some folks in like the initial cohort I started with said we actually thought you'd be the first one out, and now
Oh,
I'm one of
really? Huh.
the only one still in Boston. Yeah,
Wait,
yeah,
that's so interesting. Huh.
yeah.
When did you start thinking, I don't know, maybe it's time to move on? And also, before you answer, I feel like the framing of this convo is there are a lot of people listening who are probably on year 16 at Google or going on year 10.
Yeah.
But then there are also probably people listening who have grown up at other organizations and it's somehow they're like, am I here too long? What do I do now? Like, I think this sense of being part of something that's growing up that sort of created your sense of at least professional identity for such a long time. It's interesting to wrestle with like, when is it time to leave? Or should I actually never leave? Like sometimes I think, what if we lived in a world where you could just like rely on a company and just stay there for 45 years? Like
Yeah.
that, how
Yeah. It's a
comforting
really
that
different
might
model.
be.
Yeah.
So anyways, so this is not a railing on Google. This is like a fascinating like life study of what it's like for people
Totally.
like you who are adventurous and willing to move from the South to Boston, who are like,
Yeah.
and myself, I'm sort of a I would like to think probably people might think otherwise, but an adventurer type. It's interesting
Yeah.
that we all found long-term stability in a place and then kind of like really wrestled with the should I leave? Should I not leave? Why should I ever leave? What would it be like? So I don't know if you can talk about this, like how you started to think about alternatives or whether this was
Yeah.
the optimal place for you.
I think it was really hard to wrestle with leaving a place I had been for so long and where I had really grown up professionally.
Yeah.
I think, I felt very connected to the mission. I felt very connected to the people and like the legacy of people who were all across the organization that I knew.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also think, but when I was starting to be able to even think of leaving or think
Mm-hmm.
about a different path, was also this time that I started thinking about having kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hard to imagine having kids not at Google, to be
Yeah.
honest. Like, because I think I felt so connected to it. It felt like that all needed to be, I don't know, I wanted to stay there during that season. So it was really hard to wrestle with that, I think. I think I didn't know how, I don't wanna switch jobs. I feel like this is very relatable. I don't wanna switch
Yeah.
jobs right before I have, kids because it will be stressful and hard to ramp up, and I don't know if I'll be great at it, and then I'll go out on a leave, and then it will be even harder to come back, and
Mm-hmm.
I think I felt like staying at a place I knew so well, would be more stabilizing and, like, maybe just, like, I could really, like, give the care I wanted to give to kids or, take a leave and feel confident in coming back. Although nothing, you never know, anything could happen, but in my
Yeah.
head, that felt more, like, controllable.
Yeah.
So I think that was definitely an element, and I also just think I got to a point where I really wanted to learn more. Like, I knew a lot about our corner of the professional world, and I was so curious. I remember saying, "I wish I could take, like, an externship to another company." Like, I wanna
Mm-hmm.
learn how other companies work, like, what makes them great? What makes it hard? Like, what about a really small place instead of, like, such a large organization? I was, like, very interested in learning more,
Mm-hmm.
but I was not quite brave enough to walk away. I think I really struggled with, I read, like, studies about how from the moment you start thinking about leaving until you actually leave, it can be, like, up to 4 years, and I think that was definitely the case for me. I spent kind of, like, a few years almost, like, detaching myself and my identity from Google.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it's really healthy, and I think I probably had a more healthy view on my work life than I did when I was, like, so all in and, you know, it was almost, like, one and the same of, like, who I was.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a long process for me to leave.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we like commiserated over this a little bit, but you grow up in this place that's created an industry kind of, and there was a way that felt like there wasn't anything else I could do. I started to worry that my
Yes.
skill set was being a Googler and being great at
Yeah,
being at Google. And I
yeah,
know a lot of people say that. Everyone that was still there with me, I mean, most people I ended up working with towards the end were there certainly more than 5 years and maybe verging on 10, and everyone was starting feeling a similar thing. Did you feel that?
yes, definitely. I think that
Yeah.
was part of the I mean, when I say I wasn't brave enough to leave, I actually think that was a huge part of it. I just couldn't imagine my skills applying elsewhere for a long period of time, and it's crazy to look back. It's hard to even get in touch with the person who thought that anymore for me.
Mm,
Like, I have a hard time even, like, locating that, like, thought process.
mm,
I feel like such a different person now, but I think at the time I think it is kind of insular when you're around this huge organization and you've been there for so long and you just, like, cannot see what it would be like to be outside of it.
mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
but absolutely, I mean, I think, like, the biggest learning is nothing could be not true. Like, I feel like, I learned so many things that would have been hard to learn at the pace we did,
Yeah.
and they're so applicable elsewhere. I just don't think it was so hard to see at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you're proof that you can, because you moved on to big roles at Dentsu,
Yeah.
a big role at Criteo, which I'm working on saying correctly. But do you remember what it was like when you first, like, you handed in your badge and you like walked out? Like
Yeah.
what it,
Well, I, in some ways, feel really lucky. I was a part of a RIF in 2024, and they wouldn't there's no specific reason given, but I think likely because I was not in New York, um, which at the time I was really grateful for. In the conversation when I like, during the conversation with my manager, he was explaining to me what was happening, and I stopped him and I said, I just want to say I am like really grateful for this and thankful. I had an amazing run here, and
Mm.
I was ready to move on at the time. So I actually threw myself a goodbye party when I turned in my badge
The
and my
most googly
computer.
thing to do.
It was
Yeah.
great. I was ready. I felt like I had like it's almost like a parent send off. Like they'd given me so many skills and so many opportunities, and I was kind of ready to fly. And I remember it as like a really positive like parting, and I think it was time for me. And I think I
Mhm.
knew that. I had had a lot of personal things going on around the same time. And
Mhm.
I wasn't brave enough to like consider how do I manage all of this at once. And I think I used Google as a way to say this is keeping something consistent. So I
Yeah.
think like that consistency in life, I think it's hard to like choose to rock the boat sometimes. And
Yes.
that's definitely how I was like managing, I think, other things in my life.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. There's so much, even we'll talk about your story too, but even just on a macro level, the world is so uncertain.
Yeah.
And it was interesting how you said that about just when you contemplated having kids, it would be nice to control what you can control. Having kids is going to be chaotic and stressful. Like, wouldn't it be nice to be working in a place that's known and that you're known
Yeah.
in?
Yeah.
Um, but let's go to, so you had a wonderful first son. You also had a wonderful second son, but turned out
Totally.
to be complicated.
Yes.
Can you talk to us about what came about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, my second son, August, he was born. I was on maternity leave, really, not much to report. It was like everything went as expected.
Mhm.
And he was 18 months old. And I got a call from daycare, and they said, he's having balance trouble. And we really think you should take him to the pediatrician. He might have an ear infection. And so, of course, I like go get him. It's like right at the end of the day, we go to the pediatrician, and she watched him walk around the office, and she looked at me and she said, "You're going to the ER." And at first I thought she was kidding. Like I thought it was like you're going to the ER, and you thought and she was like, "I'm going to call neurology." And she had this look on her face, and it was like I knew at that moment like we were in for a long night. And
Mm.
so we got admitted, and they were trying to figure out what was going on with August. And 2 days later, they let us go and said, it could be a number of things. Um, there's benign explanations for balance issues. And they said, I think you should come back in 6 months. And so, and we'll do a more detailed MRI just to, make sure. And after 2 months, I was like, I can't wait anymore. We have to go back. And so we went back, and they did this more detailed MRI, which revealed a brain abnormality. And, again, they said, if you lived somewhere other than Boston, you may never know this, but we're doing this like more detailed investigation. It may have no impact on his life, but you probably should check his hearing.
Mhm.
And they had recommended checking a bunch of other things. So we were doing a lot of diagnostic tests, and it got, we had done so many, and I thought, well, this hearing test has kind of like been the one we've been like putting off. And so I was like, I'll just take him, me and Anthony don't both need to go. And I go for this hearing test, and you sit in a booth, and you hear different sounds at different frequencies and volumes. And he's only 2, so he's sitting in my lap. I'm trying to get him to stay engaged, and I realize about halfway through that he can't hear like a good number of the sounds.
Mhm.
Like he doesn't flinch, he doesn't turn towards the sound, like he's not playing the games the way that they want him to be engaging. And by the end of it, I was like frozen, and I was like, our whole life has changed
Mhm.
before I had even talked to anybody. And the doctor came over and said, he's going to need some hearing aids.
Mhm.
And I remember I looked at her and I said, for like a month? Like, how could he need that? Like, I was so taken
Yeah.
aback. 'Cause I never suspected, hearing loss. But because he had the brain abnormality and the hearing loss, it became an emergency. And to figure out what is causing this, and if it was degenerative or if it was related to other things, or it was like a bigger diagnosis. And so I took 2 months off work,
Mhm.
and we went to 48 doctor's appointments in 2 months.
Mhm.
With like a range of specialists. Like we did, it was like genetics, audiology, um, orthopedics, neurology. It was an incredible number, or infectious disease,
Mhm.
just like circling on like, what could this be? And we really couldn't find it. We couldn't
Yeah.
figure out what was going on. And so after 2 months, I went back to work, and it was my first day back at work. And I got a call from the neurologist, and she said, he has something called congenital CMV. And I remember her saying this, I'll never forget it. She said, I am so happy we found a diagnosis. I was afraid we never would.
Mm.
And she was like, I know you don't want to hear this right now, but it will give you access that you won't have otherwise without a
Mm.
diagnosis. And she was totally right. So yeah, it
Did you
was a
take
big.
that call? Did you take that call at Google in the office?
No, I was sitting on the floor of
Mm.
my son's bedroom,
Aw.
and um, yeah, I'll never forget it. I'll
Yeah.
never forget it.
What did you do next?
Um, I feel like I was numb for a while, and I didn't want to know any more about it. Like I just
Mhm.
wanted to like sit on like, we know something, and I don't want to like panic.
Mhm.
And then I started looking up congenital CMV and the range of impact it can have on children, which is incredible. And then learning about how common it is and how it can be prevented.
Mhm.
And I feel like there was a full range of emotion, because congenital CMV is a virus you get at any time. It's not
Mhm.
dangerous. You've probably had it.
Mhm.
It's like rampant in daycares. It is
Mhm.
only dangerous if you're pregnant and it's passed to the fetus. And so, you do feel a little bit responsible, because when I
Mm.
was pregnant, I obviously got a virus
Yeah.
and passed it to him. And so you think about like, and it was 2021 when he was born, so we were in lockdown for a good portion of that. And so
Mm.
you think about like, how could this even be true? Like, I don't even know how I could have gotten a virus.
Yeah.
But you can, often it's a second child, because the first child's in daycare, and CMV is very rampant in daycares.
Mhm.
And so often you're getting it from your older child, and they shed virus for many months. And so that's likely how I got it. And, I'll never know, but
Mhm.
there's a
Yeah.
range of emotions. I think you feel guilty, and then you feel scared, and you feel, there's so much uncertainty. The outcome for congenital CMV diagnosis is not straightforward.
Mhm.
Hearing loss is often progressive. So you start to think about like, what does this mean for his life and for our life? And there's many other associated um, things that can be going on. So you could also have, there could be vestibular challenges around the balance system. There could be vision challenges. There could be things we don't know until he's older, and learning disabilities, things like that. And so it's a
Mhm.
little overwhelming when you start like really take it all in.
Yeah. And so I remember seeing you around this time too. Google, public knowledge, was going through a lot of the stressful, verging on downsizing time. Like, it was not the happiest time at Google either. So just wondering, like, when there's already reason to be sort of frustrated with life circumstances, and then this happens. How did all of those things? How did you write? I don't. What became bigger or smaller? Like, where did you shut down on all fronts? Understandably, or how did you? Where did your energy go?
Yeah. I think that it was really hard, because when I knew he had hearing loss, and before I took the leave to like investigate like
Mm-hmm.
to go on all these doctor's appointments and basically live at the hospital, I was trying to work at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it was the intensity at that time, because people didn't want to lose their job. I think
Yeah.
I also was like, I need this health insurance. I'm finding out I have a kid who has a bunch of needs. I was kind of fighting to stay in it and to stay relevant. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember I came to work one day, and I was trying to get August hearing aids. I just found out he had hearing loss, and he was
Mm-hmm.
2 and he had never had hearing aids. And the system is so broken. And so they were telling me I couldn't get an appointment, and to get him hearing aids until October. And it was like July. And I just was, I felt like I was really losing. And I was like, I want my child to hear. I want him to develop speech. Like, I want him to
Yeah.
have access to sound. And I went into a meeting, and I just started crying. And I was like, my son's losing his hearing, and nobody cares. Like, nobody cares if he
Yeah.
can hear. Um, and so I think I was like, I had such mixed feelings. Like I was trying to work. I really couldn't work. I think emotionally I was like,
Yeah,
you're
of
not
course.
in a place to work. And then I took the leave and came
Yeah.
back, but found this diagnosis out after I was back.
Yeah.
And I think I couldn't really deal with it because I felt kind of like I have to be back and working and focused to
Hmm.
stay relevant. Um, but at the same time, we have to care for this child who now we're finding out has other things going on. And
Yeah.
I'd say like his care became my number one, that was my number one focus.
Hmm.
How to care for him in a way that would set him up for a successful life and make sure he was getting access to education and any kind of medical stuff he needed. Really, it went from like, this is just a part of raising a child to like, this is my number one priority is making sure he has access to everything he possibly can.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've been an incredible advocate for him and also an incredible advocate for kids everywhere who may have this and don't know, or people that are going to have kids and should be able to know that this is happening. Can you talk a bit about how, or has the advocacy, has that been part of, like, I think of it sort of like there's this integrating of like, there are these new things that life is unfortunately often happens to us. And then we have to
Yeah,
figure out how to kind of like integrate it into who we are. Was
totally.
the advocacy piece, you're such a leader and a problem solver, like, is part of that a way for you to like metabolize what
Yeah.
this is?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, I think I was at a point in my life where it was like I could rage and be so upset about this,
Mhm.
or I could use the energy towards like improving the situation, making sure this doesn't happen to other families, or making sure other children have access to hearing aids when they start losing their hearing, or making sure families don't go on a 9-month diagnostic odyssey. Um, and that's really when the advocacy started. I mean, I love your podcast. And I love how you talk about like parenting and working and all that stuff. And I think it became really clear to me after I left Google how broken all the systems were for working parents.
Mm.
That same year, we didn't get into aftercare in our school district. And I remember I joke all the time about it. I'm like, it's the email that cost me $20,000 because
Mhm.
it went from like I'll have aftercare built into the school day to like I need to get a nanny and I need transportation and I need activities. And it
Yeah.
was like so hard to imagine not actually having aftercare. And so like that had gone on. And then we were going through the IEP process for
Mhm.
August because he was graduating from early intervention. He was turning 3. So we were going through that process and realizing that, without a diagnosis, you can't receive services. And August needed to be outplaced into a deaf and hard of hearing school. And he was deaf of hard of hearing without a diagnosis of
Mhm.
congenital CMV. But because we knew it was congenital CMV, we knew it was likely degenerative hearing loss, which really it makes it more important for earlier intervention and earlier access to a lot of that speech therapy and things like that. And so
Mhm.
I feel deeply grateful for a diagnosis. And that really is what pushed me to say, I have to make sure that, anyone that I can touch has this experience. Like they end up getting a diagnosis. And if I can change the policies to do that, like I'm going to. And
Yeah.
so I partnered with um, a woman who lost her child to congenital CMV, and she's been at this now for 6 years to pass a law in Massachusetts to test every newborn for congenital CMV. And so the parents would have a diagnosis and they could have early intervention. There's medication you can give if when the child is a newborn and it can save their hearing.
Mhm.
Um, and there's also language in the bill around prenatal education because there are ways to prevent CMV. And they're pretty easy. But if you're pregnant and you don't know about CMV, like almost all women are,
Yeah.
um, you don't know to do those things. And so, I'm really passionate about this. No, I'm sure not everyone listening knows about congenital CMV, but it is extremely common and it's more common than Down syndrome or spina bifida, many things that you have heard about. And it's more common than almost everything the newborn blood test screens for. So
Mhm.
I just feel so passionate about making sure families get a diagnosis and making sure children, receive care as soon as they possibly can. That's one thing that, I try not to let it haunt me, but if we had known that August had this, we could have given him medication. And so
Mhm.
it's just, I feel like I spend so much of my time thinking about how can we advocate for these families and children, to make this, my experience, not their experience.
Yeah. What would, for anyone that stumbles upon August now, what would they see? How would they see
Yeah.
August, and what's his outlook today?
Yeah. I mean, August is thriving.
Yeah.
August lives a great life. August has surpassed like everything I ever thought he could do. We were told he has vestibular issues, the balance issues, and
Mhm.
we were told he may not be able to ride a bike. And he learned to ride a bike a year before my older son. And he skis, and he loves his friends. He has so many. August is like a social butterfly.
Mm.
He's like such a funny guy.
Mhm.
I think he's gonna do really well, and I credit so much of it to the Clark School, for the deaf and hard of hearing. They teach kids, to listen and speak, deaf kids to listen and speak. I think it's helped him a lot with his social interactions and cues, and he's able to advocate for himself really well now. If he can't, if he doesn't hear what someone says, he's able to ask to hear again.
Mhm.
It's still hard to watch some of the things like we tried to put him into ice skating lessons, and he had to wear a helmet, and he couldn't wear his hearing aids under the helmet, and he
Mhm.
could not, and I could tell he couldn't hear the teacher, and by the end of the lesson he was like crying. I think just exhausted from trying to like hear and follow the class and all that stuff. And I think we kind of have to like, my role as a parent now is to help understand what situations is he like ready for, and where is it maybe like not the best fit for right now.
Mhm.
So I think a lot, there's a lot of mental load when you have any kind of like medical complexity, I think, on top of just like having a kid, which is really
Yeah.
hard itself.
What do you wish people knew? Because I feel like we talk about the invisible load, the mental load, and all of that sort of comes with an assumption of kind of typical-ish kids, and it's
Yeah.
already too much.
Yeah.
What are the things that are invisible to
Oh,
you with August and Brooks, who's amazing too?
oh my gosh. He's the best.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it's like every room I walk into, I think about like, can August hear? Like if we go to a brewery on a Friday night with friends, like it's so loud, like he probably can't hear.
Mm.
Or, I watch him with his friends and they'll call his name. Like they'll be riding bikes together. If August is in front, he can't hear them because can't hear behind if people are behind him. So you're just constantly thinking about accessibility. Like, is this space accessible to him? Um, I think there is just such a mental load of like what's to come for him. I try
Mhm.
not to think, yeah, I try to just think like, what can we do to equip him to live his best life, whatever comes.
Mhm.
But every now and then you think like, will he be able to navigate the world in this context? But I think also like when your friends, like if you're listening and your friends are going through some kind of like medical diagnosis, or just constant therapies and appointments and all that kind of stuff, I think just knowing that like they're probably like very hopeful but also afraid, and it's a very isolating journey. I think it changed who I am. It definitely changed like how I relate to people and what kind of friend I am, knowing that you know it's super, you can feel really isolated going through like a progressive disability diagnosis and being so uncertain about what's to come.
Mhm.
uh, and I know that can be hard to relate to if you haven't been through it. I think, like, it makes sense that that's hard to relate to.